Hey, April.
Hey, JP.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Alex, there you are. I just saw April on the screen.
All right. So, April, we get to jump into this. All right. Well, greetings. Hey, colleagues. Great to see everybody. I know things are really, really busy this week. So, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us today to learn more about this partnership that we have with the Consortium for College Opportunity. It's a really fabulous collaboration with a great set of highly selective institutions, each of which share so many of our goals and values that really embody the Gear Up community. So before we get going, if we could jump to the next slide, I'd love for everyone just to kind of use the chat to tell us who you are, where you're from, and maybe one word that describes how you're feeling today as we jump into this subject. My name is Alex Cho. I'm privileged with my colleague April to help lead NCCEP here in Washington, D.C. And my word today is determined. Um, Despite all the upheaval that each of us are feeling, I am locked in on the work, and I know you are too. So thanks for all that you're doing for our students, for our colleagues, and for our families. So let me briefly share what we have in store for you today. Um, Let me go over today's agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about undermatching and what the data has to say. We're going to briefly talk about, okay, well, what's the opportunity here relative to Gear Up? Then we're going to use the bulk of our time together to hear from our wonderful partners so they can share with you kind of the underlying strategy between the partnership. They can share some of the opportunities for you, your teams, and for your students. And then we'll make sure to have plenty of time for Q&A so that we can pick Tina and Beth's brain about, the work moving forward. Okay. So if we can go to the next slide, I just want to take a split second to just kind of ground everybody in undermatching, right? I know we're all steeped in this, so I won't dwell on it. But as you know, undermatching is when high achieving students, particularly those from low income backgrounds or underrepresented backgrounds, like we find so often in Europe, attend colleges that are less selective than their academic credentials would otherwise allow. Okay. Um, for each of us in Europe, I think finding the right college fit is a highly personalized process, right? We want to work with each individual student and help them find the right institution that matches their goals, their aspirations, their finances, a whole other set of factors. But as we also know firsthand, too many Europe students aren't even considering highly selective institutions, right? They're not considering them even when they're a viable or even a favorable option to pursue. Okay. There, as we all know, there are just too many myths, right, about affordability, too many myths about admissibility, or even just their sense of belonging. And these myths are really, really pervasive, and they're stubborn, right? They haven't disappeared. And given that this phenomenon is largely driven by issues of cultural capital, I genuinely believe that Europe is uniquely positioned to help address this. So let me talk a little bit about the scope of undermatch on the next slide. Depending on the study, it's estimated that anywhere between 25 to 50% of high achieving low income students go to less selective institutions than they're qualified for. Um, in fact, even the NBER found that about 40% of high achieving low income students don't even apply to the more selective colleges that they could get into, right? Brookings findings are similarly concerning. Now, Beth and Tina are going to talk a little bit about what some of the consequences of the undermatch phenomenon is. But I just want to say, I think addressing this challenge at the national level is really, really important for us. When a student is properly matched to a college or university, we see just a wealth of improved educational and career outcomes. It's good for the institutions, it's good for the higher education sector, and it's good for our country as a whole, right? So let me go back to this idea that if our goal is to ensure that we expose our students to, all the viable options before them, you know, this really kind of centers around two questions. Like one, how do we better demystify um, highly selective institutions? And secondly, how do we get better access to them? Right. And so if we can jump ahead to slide 7, in fact, I'm just really eager to talk about our partnership with the Consortium for College Opportunity, because this is really where they come in. As I opened, I genuinely believe that each of the member institutions of the consortium are squarely aligned with us on mission. Okay. Um, April, our friend JP Gray, who is an elected board member at NCCEP, Carlos Bing, the state director who's elected to the NCCEP board of directors, and we were at a consortium convening earlier this year. And frankly, it was incredibly eye-opening to see the lengths that these institutions go to support low-income students in high school, on college campuses, and in their careers as alums. It's phenomenal. Okay. So there's just a lot of opportunity for, I think, a lot of students that we serve. Okay. But the other thing that was really eye-opening for me was how each of these institutions really emphasized how important relationships are um, between schools, school districts, and the universities that they work for. Okay. So if we know that these types of relationships are critically important, this may be where schools that serve higher numbers of low-income students, may feel like they're at a disadvantage, right? They may feel like they don't have an easy on-ramp to gain access to those kind of relationships. And so what we're hoping is that this consortium can play a really meaningful role in establishing and supporting these relationships between our Gear Up communities and these many institutions of higher education. So I'll be radically transparent here, as I try to be. I want nothing more than for colleges and universities competing for Gear Up students. I want them to roll out the welcome mat, and I want them to sprinkle a ton of financial aid. I want them to move heaven and earth to get our students enrolled and in a position to succeed. Okay, that's what motivated us to join this consortium. And every single one of the universities that we met, they all said the same, right? They all said, we want your students and we'll help your communities however we can, right? So as a result, we entered in this awesome partnership with the express purpose of exposing more Gear Up students to early opportunities that are frankly pretty remarkable in nature, and also helping our NCCEP members and our Gear Up communities to gain greater expertise through professional development and capacity building. So to join us today are just two wonderful leaders in the social impact space. Each of them, I won't go into their bios. I think hopefully they'll introduce themselves. But I just think each of them are so uniquely positioned to nurture this relationship between Gear Up and these institutions. Both of them have led, nationally recognized college access programs, so they really know the substance of our work. They've worked in K-12 or higher education, and like everybody on the webinar today, um, Beth and Tina are just some of the most passionate, mission-driven people you'll ever meet. So please welcome our friends to give us a deeper dive into the consortium. Tina, Beth, the floor is yours. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Alex. And thank you guys for joining today. I see some old friends and some new friends, and we're just really grateful. Thank you to April and to Alex for providing us the opportunity to come and be with you today. Alex said, basically the main points about our background. And Tina Fernandez, I've been in college access, educational justice for almost my entire career. The thing I'll add to this is that this work has always been really personal for me. And I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm a daughter of immigrants, grew up in a low income community and had the opportunity to go to Harvard. And now I'm in my 50s, and next week my daughter will graduate from Rice University. And the fact that I was able to go to a highly selective college changed the trajectory of my life and the generations that follow. So this work is also just really personal for me. And I'm just really thrilled to be here in a really difficult time for the work that we do. So I just want to also acknowledge that I know everyone is trying to do their best in very uncertain times. But I'm proud to be a part of a community that continues to serve students even in the face of all of the obstacles before us. So I'm going to turn it over. And my role in the consortium is I am the liaison with the community-based organizations. Beth and I do everything, but officially that's my role. And so I'm just excited to be with all of you today. And I'll pass it over to Beth so that she can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I just want to also extend my thanks to Alex and April for bringing us here today. When we launched this consortium, the hands were raised very quickly and enthusiastically, as you heard today, to join us in this work, which, as Tina shared from her own personal experience, can be transformative for so many people in this country. I'm Beth Brieger. My own background is in education access, working in New York City public schools, working in juvenile justice, working in philanthropy, and most recently led a national organization that helps high-achieving low-income students go to selective colleges with the underlying angle of trying to transform the leadership sector in this country. Now more than ever, trying to bring the diversity of viewpoints and perspectives to the circles of power where decisions are made. And I work with Tina. We are a dynamic duo, sidekick of each other, but I mostly work on the college side as Tina follows and works with the CBO side. So thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be with us today. We know you have a lot on your plate, and also thank you for doing the work that you're doing and holding fast in support of the Gear Up Young people. We're delighted to partner with you here today. And I'll turn it back over to Tina.
Thanks, Beth. So just a little bit of background information on the Consortium for College Opportunity. We were formed about 2 years ago in response to what we were seeing was just kind of the dismantling of all of the traditional avenues for underrepresented low-income students to access selective colleges. This was in the wake of the Supreme Court decision, Students for Fair Admissions, and just different policies across the country. What we were seeing was that it was just going to get harder and harder for students from low-income communities and low-income families to be able to access selective colleges. And so we formed to be a bridge between CBOs who are always, way under capacity, and, serving kids and all of the different pathways available to students, and selective colleges who often aren't, they don't have an inside view into low-income communities and the challenges that students face. And so what we do is we operate as an intermediary or a bridge builder, an honest broker, to try to bring these two sectors together and facilitate dialogue and relationship building and ultimately problem solving to make sure that the students that Gear Up serves have access to these institutions. So this is just right. So, we're growing. We've only been around for a couple of years. And so far, these are the schools that have joined the consortium. And there are many others who Beth has been talking to and cultivating and in the pipeline. So we expect the number of Ivy Plus, or selective colleges in the consortium to grow. But this gives you a sense that we've got some geographic diversity, some private, some public, some small liberal arts, some larger institutions. But we're really excited about the breadth of colleges that have signed on to this effort. And then we've got many community-based organizations that have been a part of creating this initiative. We've engaged design partners. We've engaged CBOs in the design of this initiative because we wanted it to be responsive to the needs of organizations like yours. So all of the logos that you see here, many of them have come to our meetings, have come to our convening, are participating in pilots, and are really helping to inform the work that we do in the same way that we've been able to work with Alex and April and some of your colleagues from Gear Up to really think about how we can best serve your needs. Alex talked about the matching phenomenon and the undermatching that happens for low-income students. And that was a really good introduction into our why. So, often when we have conversations, people will say, well, selective colleges only serve a really small percentage of students. We're trying to make sure that students have different options. Why should we care about selective colleges? And then we hear all these reasons. They're expensive, they're elitist, they don't accept that many students. But the reality is that for better or for worse, these colleges are still the most direct pipeline to the power structures in this country. So you may have heard of Raj Chetty, who's an economist at Harvard, and he runs something called the Opportunity Insights Project, where they've collected census data for years and really studying social mobility and the factors that enable social mobility and hinder social mobility. And they've recently done a study and released some data around the importance of selective colleges in social mobility. And in that second bullet, what you'll see is that what they found was that although less than 1% of Americans attend the most selective colleges, the people who attend these colleges account for almost 14% of those in the top 0.1% of the income distribution. So the wealthiest of the wealthiest come from these schools. A quarter of U.S. senators, half of all Rhodes Scholars, 3/4 of Supreme Court justices in the last half century. You look at the presidents, who have held that office. And again, this doesn't make it right, but it is the reality that there are a certain number of schools that are still feeding these institutions. And so what we want to ensure is that students that we serve, students from low-income backgrounds, have access to these places and can also be in these pipelines. And we know that they are severely underrepresented in these institutions. But the other thing I'll say about the matching phenomenon, and I used to run an organization called Achieve Atlanta, and we did a lot of research on undermatching. What we also found was that, and this seems counterintuitive, but students who undermatch actually underperform at the institutions they attend. So a student who undermatches to, let's say, a community college in their city, or even a state college in their city, and this is nothing on the school, but what we found is that the students perform less well than if they had actually even gone to a reach school. So a school where maybe they were even at the bottom of the selective criteria. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the undermatching, and some of it is, what are the expectations that are placed on me? What are the resources that are available to me? So many times we think that students' performances is just about innate qualities, but it is really about the structures, the supports, the financial, resources that surround them that then help them to succeed. So this is why we do the work that we do. And as I mentioned, what do selective colleges have to offer? Often they have some of the highest graduation rates because when these schools accept students, they want to make sure that students stay. And so if a student is struggling, they've got tutoring supports. They've got emergency grants for students who have a financial emergency. They've got therapists available to students to deal with mental health issues. So there's just an unlimited amount of resources that help to promote those higher graduation rates. They also, and this is one of the things that we talk a lot about, often, especially for students, from the lowest income bracket, schools can cover almost their entire cost of college, if not their entire cost. And so, we've got some information, and our partners have done presentations where they will show that a student attending a selective institution with a high endowment can often pay less and graduate with less debt than a student who goes to a more affordable state college or state university. And then the other piece of this, and we all talk about the college to career pipeline, is that these selective institutions, because of the resources and the connections and the alumni that they have, can often provide high quality internships, access to alumni networks, and ultimately also, and what that results in is higher earnings and rates of employment after graduation. I think I saw a statistic that said that even a first-gen college grad is still earning 60 cents on the dollar from a student who graduates and who is not a first-generation college student. So these inequities continue throughout life, and attending one of these colleges can help to mitigate those situations. And so this is, again, just more on the ability of schools to meet the full need. And more colleges, in the wake of what's happening, are actually doubling down on saying that they will help students from lower income families pay the cost of attendance.
Thanks, Tina. We want to talk to you a little bit about kind of how we operate, what we do, and think about ways perhaps we can work together. As Tina said, we're in our second year, so a lot of what we're doing is very much innovating, trying things out and experimenting. And we're excited that we can do that with Gear Up as well. And part of the reason we're also so excited to work with a program like Gear Up is obviously not only because of the track record and the efficacy of the Gear Up initiative, but also because there are a lot of college access organizations out there, as we might call broad-based organizations that might have a very small number of students who might be on track to go to institutions like this, but perhaps just aren't equipped or have the training or experience or resources to support students through these processes. And so working with a program like Gear Up really kind of bring in a whole new set of educators to work with and exposure for students. So we're super excited about that. So we really serve as a hub, a stored for CBO, selective college partnerships. We try to facilitate collaborations between selective colleges and CBOs. We try to build the capacity of our CBO and college professionals to work together to support FLY students and organize all the processes and interactions and intention and activities that make these partnerships work well and make them more efficient. So really, as you saw on the slide, we're really trying to build a community of CBOs and selective colleges that focus on supporting FLY students. For folks who do work directly with students and work with colleges, we know that so much of what makes the wheels grease is the relationships that you have, whether it's with families, whether it's with students or admission professionals. So strengthening those relationships among professionals and the selective colleges is a big part of what we do, trying to garner the voice and the expertise of the folks on the ground working with young people to inform new practices and new initiatives. And then just really to provide a platform for all of us coming together to do this work, to try to shift some paradigms and activities that are going on and make change. And so that's kind of our overarching approach. And our goals are really to do a few things, some of which Alex talked about, to really raise awareness from CBO stakeholders about selective colleges. So we do a lot of outreach to demystify the selective college process, to expand selective college knowledge. Some of those activities come through events and resources that come from our college partners, disseminating information about affordability, accessibility, upward mobility. We were honored that a few of our colleges did a panel at Gear Up Academy this past February about affordability. And I think there were about 50 participants who came and really kind of learned some of the things that we've been talked about in practice. We're trying to really deepen the pipeline of first-gen low-income students applying to these institutions. A key to that is working with the educators that work on your teams and providing professional development and knowledge and resources about how this process works. I've worked in this field now for more years than I care to count. And I have to tell you, I had 2 kids go through the process and I couldn't figure out how to do it. So, imagine, right, then educators who don't have students going through this process, kind of how much inside baseball really comes with understanding the financial aid, understanding how admissions works, and the Common App. So we provide a lot of professional development really delivered by our college partners and can provide technical assistance to CBOs who might be looking for different activities or workshops to happen. We generate a lot of resources for students. So we have a newsletter, we'll share that later, and really can just build a lot of connections. If someone raises their hand, from, I think that happened this year, someone in West Texas wrote to Alex and said, we'd love to get someone to come out and do a workshop. And, our colleague from Penn went somewhere where she had to fly and then drive to get very far out in Texas and did a workshop for about 75 people. Our events will happen both virtually and in person. And then one of the other things we've been doing this year is piloting an experiment through which students can have materials read prior to the early decision deadline, recognizing from our conversations that early decision, as many folks may know, really has an increased probability for admission to selective schools, but really is catered towards those who kind of have the time and the resource to have their ducks in the row. They finished their testing, they visited the campuses, they have savvy counselors who know how this works. And so we have a pilot going with a couple of schools where students can kind of figure out if they might be admissible to these schools and what their financial aid might look like before they have to sign on the dotted line. So trying to expand access to the early decision process. So we also have an annual convening that Alex and April got to attend, where we have probably about, I think, 40 CBOs coming this year and probably at least a dozen selective colleges. We do a lot of virtual networking events. And we also, one thing that we have done this year is we're gathering information from all our CBOs about activities that are going on in the summer, where they might want colleges to come and join in, and we're pushing that information out to the colleges so that they could contact, let's say JP, for example, and be like, hey, we hear you're doing this thing in Tennessee, we'd like to come. So that's another example of some of the activities that we do. So I can talk a little bit about concrete things that we can do if we're in partnering with Gear Up sites. So we can facilitate the delivery of professional development sessions on a whole range of selective college admission topics, and bring forward veteran admission professionals from our 10 highly selective institutions. They can be on topics like affordability. We have a great session that we're doing at the Gear Up conference this summer called Behind the Scenes at the Admission Committee. And literally folks will have the opportunity to see how an application is read by admission staff and kind of get the inside scoop, as well as just other information like how to write a college essay, what small liberal arts colleges are like, and also about resources and supports for FLY students. We can facilitate participation of consortium colleges in any Gear Up event that might be running in your region. Again, whether it might be virtual or in person, whether it's for parents, summer camps that you're running, workshops. We got a request the other day to do just like a 2-hour virtual event for students and get a bunch of colleges to do presentations. So really you think of it and we can make it happen, because our college partners, I think, are just really, really excited to get in front of new students and educators. We can provide early awareness sessions for middle school and high school students. So some of our college partners have really specialized in thinking about what it means to be college ready and how to think about the college experience, and getting in front of students maybe around 8th or 9th grade, before perhaps they, make a math decision that lets them miss calculus or drop a language too soon, or really just even understanding what the high school journey should look like as they think about selective colleges. We can introduce folks to admission reps. If you have a certain student who's interested maybe in selective colleges in California, we can make personalized introductions and help you build relationships to support your sites. And then also can just deliver a range of curriculum, other resources and information that we have that we've culled and gathered from our college partners. And then really anything else you think of, I think we're game. I think that's part of the innovation of what we're thinking about right now, which is we certainly want to hear from all of you, like what things would be most helpful, and how can we deliver those things. So I kind of talked about this a little before, but we've been working with Trio and Gear Up for about a year. And here's some examples of things that we've done. Some topics of workshops we've delivered, where we've participated, and some of our virtual workshops that we've done as well. So this just gives you a sense of a little bit of what's in our arsenal. But again, I think we are very much looking to expand and innovate based on what folks need. One thing I'll flag, and I'll happy to send it out after, is we have a survey out to our CBO partners about summer activities, just basically saying, hey, do you have a camp or a workshop or a summer program? Would you like a selective college to come? What would you like them to present on? And if you fill out this survey, it will auto-populate into a giant resource list that colleges will get. And they will be able to call you and say, hey, we're going to be driving through Texas, in July, we saw that you have this event, we would love to come. So that can really help as you're building out your summer activities as well. So we'd love to, I think, answer questions, have discussion, discuss any next steps. Tina and I would be happy to meet with individual Gear Up directors about their sites, about the needs in their communities and what opportunities might be of interest. Would love to invite folks to complete the summer survey. That's kind of a low lift type of activity, but as you're thinking about your summer work and you want to have a rep from Stanford come, or someone from Brown or so forth, I think they'd be very excited. We have a QR code for our newsletter, and we can love to hear a little bit more about your own events that happen during the year or during the summer. We've been going to some of the regional conferences and local conferences, big PD events. Love to get a sense of what's on your docket and where you might be interested in having capacity. So, I don't know, Tina, did I leave anything else out?
No, I think that's a lot of information. And I saw in the chat that Alex put in a link to how to sign up for the newsletter. Oh, there, and here it is.
We'd love to open it up for questions, or Alex, maybe kick it back to you if you have any other thoughts or anything maybe we've missed.
No, thank you, Tina. Thank you, Beth. We appreciate you joining us. To everyone on this webinar, here's the proposition. Tina and Beth have wrangled an incredible list of institutions who have incredible resources to educate students and families, but also to support counselors, college access advisors, your Gear Up teams around the college going process. And while it is tailored for highly selective institutions, I think the underlying lessons are broadly applicable to anybody, right? To any institution. So for example, the University of Pennsylvania has some remarkable no cost online courses that college advisors and counselors can take. And it's so rich with information that it could be really useful in any context, even if you don't have a student who's thinking about Penn. So they've wrangled up some fabulous institutions with incredible resources. The other thing about these institutions is they are road warriors. I mean, they're constantly traveling. And our proposition is like, hey, stop going to all those high income school districts and start coming to our school districts, right? So, but that requires a little bit of leadership on your behalf, right? You got to ask them to come, right? They're not going to show up unannounced. No amount of wishful thinking will get them on your door, okay? But here's what we've learned. Everybody who is asked usually has more reps reaching out saying, yeah, we could probably make that than they actually want, right? So please take advantage of this resource. So there's really nothing else like it. And just a great way to infuse people who just have a mastery over college admissions, behind the scenes stuff. Get them in front of your counselors, get them in front of your advisors, get them in front of students and families, and I promise you really, really good things will happen.
One thing I wanted to just jump in on, Alex, and thank you for that, is that these resources are also open to all, to all grades, especially all high school grades. But we've even had, we have a partnership also with TRIO, and they work with talented students in summer programs who are younger, and they've also taken advantage of the resources. So this really is open to people who are working across grades. And that said, I would also say that if any of you are working with juniors right now or sophomores who are getting ready for the college application process, this is a really good time to get access to some of these resources and to build some of these relationships. And I know that you guys have colleagues across the Gear Up world. And so if you know folks who are also working with rising juniors, rising seniors, please also spread the word. Let them know that we have the ability to help connect them to resources.
Okay, thank you, Tina. So with that said, we'll open the floor if you've got any questions. You want to pick Beth's brain? You want to pick Tina's brain on what's possible with Gear Up in these higher education institutions? Feel free to unmute and join the conversation. I think everyone's typing in their summer survey responses, Tina. We shouldn't have given them homework right away.
That's great. Well, good. Well, you know where to find us. And as you guys, have questions and as you start looking through our materials, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're available to answer any question that you have.
I do have a question. Um, I know you all are a newer organization, and I was just wondering, since there's some overlap with the Stars College Network, are you all partnering with them? And they're new as well. But like for example, USC, I know is part of both of your organizations. Are you all partnering together with Stars at all?
We are not, however, again, as you point out, a lot of our institutions are also involved in STARS, which, if folks don't know, is an initiative out of the University of Chicago, by a U Chicago funder that tries to, expand access to selective colleges for students from rural backgrounds. And it's kind of a loosely organized network of colleges for sure. So I would say we partner with a lot of the same schools, but because we're really national and not, I would say, kind of just rural focused, we don't partner with them directly, but we're all buddies. We all travel in the same circles.
No, because some of the services are similar, and I know like Stars, I know they kicked off in 2023, and they have come down to our region. Actually, Tina, Rio Grande Valley, right here.
Yay!
So they actually have come down, and they're also supported, I think, through some investing through Root Ed, and we have a Root Ed grant here in our office. So they have been coming down a little bit more these last few years. But I think it would be a great opportunity to bring your organization as well. We do have a grant that is currently serving sophomores, so I can notify that grant director, and then we also have Root Ed, which is servicing seniors. So it's a great opportunity, I think, just like you said, like to come in and talk more to counselors and the people who are advising students about these opportunities. And because again, Tina, the Valley, we're so far away
Yeah.
from these universities for many students. It's just like an impossible thing to think of and to consider. So and a lot of it does start with like what is the guidance like that is given to them by counselors, by our Gear Up facilitators, our staff. So it's just another great opportunity, and I appreciate you all being here today and sharing this information.
Thanks, Nicole. We would love to get more reps down there. I mean, and the reason I ended up going, leaving my community was because somebody who I knew had gone to one of these institutions, and it was a very personal relationship, right? And so we know that this work is relational, especially for students who haven't had the chance to go outside of their communities very much. So we're excited about, and plus we'll tell people that they can eat really well if they, if they get on the road.
Yes. Entice them with food.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Tina, thank you so much for your time. Beth, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, so we'll be posting this recording and the contact information for the consortium. Be sure to check out their website, sign up to their newsletter. We plug it pretty regularly in the digest, but please make sure you're signed up so at least you and your team are aware of opportunities that may be happening in your community. And if nothing's coming your way, reach out to them, create your own opportunity. So with that said, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. April, thanks for organizing the webinar, and we'll talk to everybody soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.